Hi there, welcome to QA Box Let's Test, and this video we are going to learn how in Cypress we can work with different type of dropdowns. So this is the page that I've created. I've already exported to this GitHub project, so you can download it from here. Now what are the different type of dropdowns that we have these days? And it is important to understand this because the way you are going to interact them depends upon how they are built. So this first category is the traditional way of creating the dropdowns. Now, to create this dropdown, all you have to do is you have to write this code. So you have this select element, all right, and inside this you have got these options. Now here the part that we have to understand is we have got this variable attribute, and this is called as the text. Now Cypress offers us this command select, and you can select an element from the drop down based on its value, as you could see in here, or you can also identify an element based upon its text. So we're going to see both of these. Then the next step is these are all single select drop down. Now you also see elements like these. All right, so in here you can do multiple select. Now how do we make multiple select drop downs? This is again the traditional select element. The way you enable multi-select is very simple. You just add one attribute, which is this multiple. And then this size is equal to 10 basically decides the number of elements that you want to show. These days we also create custom drop downs, for example, like this. So we usually call them auto completion. So what happens is in here, let's see if I start typing AN, right? I see this list of countries, right? I can select one country by double clicking on that, and now you see that thing is being selected. So this is called as auto completion. So the moment you start typing, all the relevant data is being displayed to you, and then you select one from that list. Okay, but the thing is, this particular element is not the select type element. So let me show you this in the code. This is that element, and in here this is an input type element. This is not the select type. So how are we going to work on that? So the thing is, it's very simple and straightforward. If you understand that this is input type, so basically you have to use the command type instead of select, and that's the whole thing in here. That's a whole trick. So if you are working with select type of element, then only that select method is going to work. But if you're working on the customized drop downs, so then depending upon what the element internally that is, right, you have to accordingly choose the actions. All right, so now let us look at the last one. So in here, this is a select type drop down, right? But then I have used a jQuery plugin chosen. With the help of this, I have given this look. So you can do it like this. So now you can select multiple options, and the beauty is the moment you select one option from this list, that becomes disabled. So now you can do it like this. All right, so these are the different ways we can have a drop down element added to the web application. Now we have external websites also available like this. So in here you see that this is a drop down. You click on that, you see a list of options, but if you identify this particular thing, it is not the traditional drop down. So you see this is a div which has got some anchor tags and so on, and all these options that you are seeing in here are further the anchor tag. What happens is when you click on this, it is going to launch a new web page. All right, so this is going to launch this website in the specific language. Same way you have Google in here. All right, you start typing something and then you get all these options. All right, this is the website again. These are the traditional drop down. You can work on these drop downs as well, and this is one more website. So in here you type something like this, and it is going to now display you all the option, and then you can select it, option from here. So we are going to write test cases on all of these, but first thing first, let's understand this. So we said that in the traditional drop down we have the value and the text. So if I want to fetch the value and the text, how am I going to do that in the console? So there are two ways essentially. We have the JavaScript way and also the jQuery way, because I'm using jQuery for this web page. All right, so now the thing that we have to do is we have to, this is how we are going to do that. So this first element has got the property value, and the value of that value is, let us see that. So let me inspect this in here. So this is the drop down. All right, and currently medium is being selected, right? And in here you see value is equal to 3 and the text is equal to medium, and this is again an interesting one. So we also have one more attribute which is selected and we are going to make use of it. All right, so whichever element is being selected, you get this attribute set to that, and we are going to make use of that because what we want to retrieve is the value of the selected item. So the first thing is you're going to identify that element. So this is how we are going to identify the element. So now we have got access to the speed element, right? Now if I want to access, let's say, the value of it, so the method that you have to use is value, and if you hit enter, so you get the value. All right, but then now how I'm going to access the text of it? So if I just say speed.text, let me show you what is going to happen. So this has returned me the text available in all the options, but I want to have the text only for the selected option. Then how I'm going to do that? All right, so this is what you're going to do. You're going to say speed.options, speed.selected index, and then you are going to say text. So then you get this value medium. Okay, so this is how we can fetch the text of this drop down using the JavaScript way. Now let's do it by the jQuery way. So jQuery way is simple. So you just have to identify that element. So the element has got the ID speed. If you want to fetch the value of it, so you're going to say val and hit enter, you get the value. If you want to fetch the text, again, I mean, there's a text method available, but there's a problem if you do it like this, so you see the whole text, right? So then how are you going to do that? Same way, like in here, we pick the options and then we pick the selected index. So in here, you just have to say options and then colon and selected. All right. Now, so not options, you have to say options. So speed option and colon selected, and then you have to invoke the text method. So this is how we are going to get the text. So now let us do for the multi-select, and let us select India, Britain and Algeria in here. Okay, so first we have to identify the drop down. So we are going to say this. So through this we can identify that element. The next thing that we have to do is we have to identify all the selected options. So for that we have to say dot selected options. Okay, now we have to save that into a variable. So I'm going to save that into a variable like this. Okay, and now we have to use the for each and spread operator. So I'm going to spread the values that are currently there into this array, and let us use the for each. So we have this for each, and we are going to log out the values of the selected options. So we do this, we get India, Britain and Algeria. All right, now let us find the text. So the way we are going to do that is we are going to say an dot text, and let us hit enter. So we get the text as well. Okay, all right, now let's do it the jQuery way. So we have to identify this element, and the method is pretty simple, straightforward. So you do this, you get the array back. All right, but if you want to do the same using the text method, just like in the previous case, you're going to get everything back, but this is not what you want. You want the selected one. All right, so you have to use option colon selected, and then it is going to give you this, right? It is a string. See that? All right, now let's move on the code part and do this thing there. So we are visiting the website and we have to identify that element. To identify that element, we are going to say cy.get. Okay, and we have this id speed. Of course has to go inside the quotes. All right, now we have to do the select operation. All right, the command is select, and let us look at this command. So there are two versions of this method available, and you could see the first one is saying select an option with specific text, and the other one is specific value. Therefore there are two test cases. One is for the text value, other is for the option value. Okay, so in here we are going to do what? We are going to pass in the text. So there is a text first. All right, now let us do this. So then we are going to use should, and we are going to pass in the callback. So let us pass the callback with the argument el, whatever is that is being returned from here. And let's do it the JavaScript way first. So how are we going to convert this element into the JavaScript. So it's very simple. So we're going to say const el is equal to, let's refer this el, and this is how we convert the jQuery object into JavaScript object. Okay, so now we have got this element, and now all we need to do is let us write expect to equal el dot options like we did in the console, and then el dot selected index. Okay, and this is going to return you what? The value, and the value in this case is 4. We copy the same, and this time we want the text. So we are going to say in here dot value, and in here it has to be text, and the value has to be what? The value has to be first. Okay, so let me use only in here. I think we are set in here. So let me execute this and see what happens. Okay, so you see fast is being selected, and here also we have the text. So that is something that I have to write. Yeah, let's write the assertion as well. Okay, so how to assert that element? So we have this cy dot get, and the element is, let me, so I select this and I get this value. So let me inspect this element. So we have got this div id select speed. So since this is a div, it will have the text. So let us assert the text should have the text first. Let us run this one more time. Okay, so now we have 3 assertions. So I was referring to this one. Alright, so it works. Okay, now let's do the same for the jQuery one. So we have to comment this out. So this is my element. Okay, and there's a method val. Okay, and in here we just have to use one more method, and that method is find. So what are we going to do? We are going to say find, and find what? Option selected. Option selected, and then we want to fetch the text of it. Okay, so we are done. So let us execute this now and see if it works. Alright, so now it is working the jQuery way as well. Okay, great. What is the third way? The Cypress way. So let's do that now. If you understand these, it's going to be easy for you to understand that. So I'm going to comment out everything now. We got to find what? Option selected. Alright, so we find that. Now let us save this, and now what we have to do is we can invoke certain methods. Alright, so let us invoke the method. Which method? So first of all, what is this invoke? Now let us see the definition of this. Invoke a function on the previously yielded subject. As we know that Cypress is making use of jQuery, so the element that you have is the jQuery element. So therefore you can invoke those jQuery methods that are available onto that element, and one such method is of course text. So let us invoke the text method. Okay, and once that method is invoked, right, it is going to return you, as you could see, the string. Right, so if you're using text, it is going to return the text, which is going to be a string. Now the output of that is a string. So let's assert that. So we are going to say should, and then equal what? Fast. Right, now we have got what? One more thing that we have to test, and that is value. Can I do the same for value as well? Yes, I can, but not in this particular way. So if I say in here invoke val and to be equal 4, see, I mean, this is going to error out. So let us run this and see. The first assertion would pass, but the second would fail, because the thing is, this invoke is invoked on a previously yielded subject, right? And I mentioned that invoke is used to invoke the jQuery methods that are available on the jQuery object, but this has returned us a string, and hence we can't do it like this. So now what is the solution, right? Either you can write this much line of code again, or you can go for alias so that we can use it again and again. So I'm just going to use an alias, and I'm going to call it as, let's say, speed. Okay, and now all I need to do is I just have to say cy dot get, and let us invoke the alias. So I'm just going to say at and speed, and I'm going to do the same before this. Okay, so now if I run this and run this again, so you see both of the assertions are being passed. Right, so we have learned this new method which is invoke, which is used to invoke the jQuery methods available on the jQuery object. Okay, and two such methods are text and value, and we have executed both of these. So let us add skip in here and move to the next test case. So now we are going to do the same with the options, but this time, because I've explained all the three ways, so I'm just going to skip some of those and you can try those things on your own. Okay, so in here all you need to understand is the only thing that you're doing in here is now you are passing the value and not the text. So let us look at this element in here. So we have this select drop down. The only thing is we also have got this opt group, and now see how does it look onto the screen. So now you see there are some categories, but they are not selectable. You can only select these options and not the option groups. So we have grouped these two values under script, and same way these two values under other files. And in here if you see the value, and the value is jQuery, but the text is this. In some cases, and don't be confused, in some cases the value and the text would be same. So you should be very clear about whether you are testing the thing based on the value or the text, because at times the value could be different. In here the value and the text is different, and in this example also the value and the text is different. So what I'm doing is I am now selecting this text on the front end with the help of this attribute which is not visible to the user. All right, but it is, you will find that in the DOM. So the test case is pretty simple. There is no change at all. You just have to pass in some text, and this time it is just a value, right? And I have commented the jQuery way, and this is the JavaScript way through which you can do that. Now we know all these, what is an option, what is a selected index, and so on. So I'm simply executing that and showing that there is no difference. All right, so you see some unknown file is being selected, and you also have this as div which contains this text, whatever that you select in the drop down, and hence all of these things are being passed. All right, so let me set skip on this, and the next one is auto completion dropdown built using input type is equal to text. Okay, now the type is not select, all right, it is input type is equal to text. So now we can't use the select method. Okay, and therefore we have to now use what, the input specific methods. Okay, so let us do this now. So if you go in here, this is what we are going to work on. We have got this input type. The moment you see that, it is very obvious that the select method in Cypress is not going to work for this. Okay, so let us now start working on this. So if I say, and let us, why not prove that? So we have this one now. Let's enable this test case. So we have, we say cy dot get. So let us fetch the ID of that. So the ID of this is my input. So let me come in here and say my input this. And if I use the method select, okay, and I pass in the value India, okay. So let us do this and run the test case. So we are going to get this error, and you could see cy.select can only be called on a select type element, and this is an input type, and it is telling that the subject that is being yielded is of input type, so it is not going to work. So then what are you going to do? Then you are going to use, obviously, what type in here. So I am changing this to type, and I'm going to do few more things, because in here, right, if I say indi, okay, I have to use the down key once, and I have to hit enter, and then I have to focus out, okay, and then you see that drop down list is gone. All right, in some cases you got to do that. So let us do that now. So how are we going to do all of that? So instead of typing India, I'm going to say indi, all right, and then we are going to use some options which are down arrow, and I also need to hit enter. Okay, so I'm going to say in here enter. Now we have typed into the value, but like I said, we have to focus out. Now the method for that is blur. Okay, so this is going to take the focus out from that, and now all we have to do is we have to check whether that field has got the value or not. All right, this basically is this particular element, but I want to check whether this field also has the India value or not. Now for input we have this have value, not have text, because text works on the text node. All right, so for input, whatever value that we enter gets stored inside the value property. Okay, so therefore we have to say should, and we just say have dot value, and the value has to be India. And see, the thing is, I've only typed INDI and not India, right? Let's see if it is going to work. It should. All right. So now you see India is being selected, and the assertion is also being passed, and this also is passed, right? So div also contains this value. Great. So I hope it is now clear that though it looks like a drop down, but it is not a traditional drop down. Hence, you cannot follow the traditional approach, going for that select method. All right. So let us skip this test case and move on to the next one, which is multi-select. But this time we have got the select element, which is a traditional element. Now it's very simple. Now, when in the select, you can also provide in the arrays. All right, besides just one string. So what we are doing is we are going to select these three values, and then we are going to invoke this function, which I just showed you in the console, and then we are going to run this. Now the thing is, instead of equal, you have to use deep equal, because there are two type of comparison operator in JavaScript. One is a strict equal, the other is deep equal. Now array is of reference type, so if you do the strict equal, because they are not two same objects, right, so it is going to fail, because they are two different objects, they are not the same object. Therefore you have to check the content. So when you do deep equal, you are using the double equal to and not triple equal to, and hence it is only going to check for the content and not for the reference. So let us run this and see. So you see three values are being selected, and we have also checked all the three values. Okay, so the assertion is being done. Now how are we going to test the text part in this particular case, because there is something different that we have to do, right? And the concept is pretty much the same basically. So let me just copy this out, and for the time being, let's comment this out. Now let us start making the changes. So when you do this, whenever it comes to text, we know what we have to do. We have to say option colon selected. That's the bare minimum that we have to do. Okay, and now all we have to do is we have to invoke the method text, right? And the thing is, we saw in the console that instead of returning the array, we got the concatenated string. All right, So therefore we got to do a change in here. So we have to join the values within this array, and this is the separator that we are going to use. Now let us see what are we going to get. Okay, so you see USA, India, Angola to deeply equal this. All right. In here, I suppose we can also use equal to, because this is a string. There you go. Right. So it works. All right. So let us look at the next thing. Let us skip this test case. Move on to the next one. All right. So this is the one wherein I have used a plugin. So let us look at this. So this is the one that we are going to work on, and at the end we are also going to click on the cancel button so that I can remove that safely. Okay, so in here let us change the skip to only, and for the time being let me just comment all these out. And again we can think that it is a select, and we can simply run our test cases. We can pass in multiple values and then simply we can check these values, right, like that. But the thing is, let's look at this drop down. So this is my drop down, this one. All right, it's a select one and everything looks okay, but then there is a problem. So let us inspect the this one here. I do the right click. All right, and in here you have this select, but under that you also have the div, and everything is happening in here. All right, so if I select a value like this, so you see that value is now being added to the input, right? That value is being added to this UI li, which is not under select. Okay, under select you have this, but the value that is being added in here is different. It is not that, it is not inside that select. It is different, right? It is inside that div. You have this ul and the uli, and you get this, right? So this is how you have to work on that. And to be more specific, you could see that this united state is actually pasted on top of this input, okay, which is of type is equal to text. But when we actually created that, right, in here we did not have any div, right? We have not used any input or anything like that. The thing is, I have made use of a plugin, and the plugin is doing the job for me. All right, so therefore my approach has to be different. If I run it like this, it is not going to work. So you see, uh, I do not see an error in here, but nothing is being selected in here. All right, it has passed everything, but nothing is being chosen, right? So therefore, I need to understand the element that I'm interacting with, right? So I'm going to just comment this out and uncomment my other code. Okay, so now if you look at this, okay, so what are we doing? So we are finding that element, okay, and then we are simply typing, then hitting enter, typing these values and hitting enter, okay. And then now the thing is, the interesting thing is we are adding values, right, to that input box, but they are, once they are added to the input box, right, they are then given to that drop down. And therefore, now when I have to run my assertion, I have to run my assertion on the drop down. And that's why I'm saying that you have to understand how your developers has designed those things. And these days, they don't design these things, they go for plugins or any other external UI design libraries, and they that has simplified their job a lot. But then we have to understand how that element is ultimately converting into the HTML element. So you see, I'm entering value in here in the input box, but then checking the value, running my assertion on the selected dropdown. Okay, now see, it is being passed, and you also see all these values are being selected in here. Let us rerun that. You see, the values are now selected and this assertion is also passed. Now the thing is, I want to delete one of these values. So then how am I going to do that? And now See again, it's very interesting. Now you have to understand, you have to find the element on which you have to click to delete that. Okay, and of course, so the phenomena would be very simple. You have just have to find that element and you have to click on that. Okay, now let us find that cross button, and again that too is coming from the jQuery plugin that I've used, chosen jQuery plugin. So let us open this and let us identify this element. So this is an anchor tag. All right, so I can click on an anchor tag, and all right, so United States is also correct. So this is an li. Okay, and this li has got the class search choice. So let's start from that. Then with the help of this text we can identify the span, and then we can, this is the neighbor, so sibling basically. So I can say next, and which is going to take me here, and then I'm going to simply click on that. This is what I have to do. So let's write the selector for that. So it is going to be, let me select this, let's go in there. So we have to say li dot this. Okay, so that is going to give me the li. Now I have to look out for a span, okay, which is the descendant of this li, and I have to look out for a span which contains the text Albania. Let's say I want to delete that, so I have to copy this, right? So you can also use this if that is not clear. Go and check out my jQuery series. Then I've explained all these selectors. All right, so now I am on the span and I want the sibling of it. So I want, if I want the next sibling, all I have to do is I have to say next. This is the method, and I can also pass in the selector in here, and my selector is basically the anchor tag, and I'm going to click on that. Okay, so now I'm deleting the Albania. Let us save that and rerun if it works. Alright, so you could see that now at the end there are only two. So this has clicked on this Albania. Alright, and that is gone. So quite interesting one, right? So we enter data into the input element. Then we ran our assertion on the select element type. And then when we had to delete the value, we identified that li. But actually you see when I created that, okay, when I created that control, all I had to do was like this, and then I added some classes in here, chosen select, and that has done all the job for me. All right, so let us switch this to skip and move on to the other one. So this basically is working on the select dropdown, single dropdown, and all we are doing is we are just selecting the PDF file, okay, from the dropdown. So it is going to launch this. There we go, and the drop down would be somewhere here. Currently we have the text file. Once the page is loaded, currently the page is being loaded. Once this is done, we'll have this PDF value. There you go. All right, simple enough. Switches back to skip. Other one is Google. This is again quite interesting. So you see what we are doing is we're visiting that page, we identify the element, we are typing JavaScript into that, and then we see a list of results here. And this is auto completion type, and all we are doing is, okay, we are finding all the LIs of this class, and then we are finding all the descendant span, and span has got these values. All right, so then I'm using the command contains, and I'm finding all the span which has got the JavaScript compiler. So let's do that first in here. So if I say JavaScript, just this one, okay, in here I'll see the option JavaScript compiler, this one, and I'm going to click on that. All right, if I can spell this correctly, all right, I'll get JavaScript compiler, and I have to click on that. Simple enough. So at times you have to also use the force is equal to true. Could be that edges are being overlapped by other elements, and because of CSS also at times this happen. So in this case I have to use this. So I'm simply going to run this and see if it works. There you go. So we are starting typing JavaScript, and now we have selected the JavaScript compiler, and we are on this new page. Great. Let's switch it back to skip and move on to the other one. This is the travel website wherein we have that language drop down, and we have to click on that. In here you could see that that is a div element. So we are simply clicking on that, which is going to open the drop down, and that drop down has got the anchor with the class this, and there's a list of those anchor items, and we just need to look out for the one which contains the text Farsi, and then that website would be opened up in the Farsi language. Pretty simple, right? But this is not a select. So let us see that. There you go. The site is website, and we are going to click on this, right? Let's see. So yeah, and you see, I clicked on that. Now the site is launching in a new language, and this is Farsi. All right. So let's switch it back to skip, and let's run our last test case. And in here, what are we doing? Again, you see, the element type is input. Okay, you're typing something into it, and that is going to then launch certain divs which have got these class. Inside that, you've got a lot of LIs. So LIs are the list of items, right? And now you have to identify this one. Okay, so contains printed chiffon, and then we are clicking on it. Let's run that. So this is basically the trick, right? So you can't use the select method in every case. You can use the select method only when you are working on a traditional drop down elements. Okay, now you see this has been changed. But if it is not a select, then you have to identify, okay, what type of element is that, and based on that you have to say, okay, if element is of type input, for example, now what I can do is I can type into it. For example, if the element is of type, let's say checkbox, what you can do? You can check on it. You can also click on that, right? So not every operation is applicable on every element type. So I hope you like that. Thank you so much.